this movie's fantastic, and oh my goodness, Amanda's wonderful in it, and you just got to be so proud of the way it's turned out, and of course, all the great reception it's getting, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a high risk project, and it like it just at a technical level, like uh I thought when I first conceived of it that, like because the opera was there as an artifact, that it couldn't be that difficult to kind of have this fly on the wall sort of, drama around it. But it ended up like, I don't know who I was fooling. Like it became um yeah, like that period, like 2 years ago when we were shooting this and putting on the opera at the same time was crazy. And um, I'm so thankful to like the two teams, the people who I was working with in the opera and my film crew, and that, and also just the people who took the risk. It was like a massive risk, right? And that Amanda was available, like because we couldn't move anything around. It had to be on these dates. But I was just seized with, like I first done this production like so long ago, 1996, and I was, I'd seen that it was remounted so many times, and it was like such a strong show. But nevertheless, when it was when I was told it was going to be remounted again in 23, 2 years ago, like I was going, okay, so times have changed from 1996. So how do I kind of address that in terms of how this work sits in our culture now? So I thought of this kind of film about the making of this remount, and the way Salome could work, the story of Salome could work through this, and then this character emerged of Janine, this person who was involved with the original production and is invited back, and seizes that opportunity, but then realizes there are all sorts of conditions and limitations, and that became really rich. Like, and especially thinking of Amanda and thinking of this promise we had made to each other again quite a long time ago, that we would work together again. But like Chloe was a long time ago, so coming back into each other's orbit, and that all seemed to be woven into the film somehow. And it was a really, yeah, it was rare. It was a rare opportunity.
Yeah. And when did you first find your love for opera? Do you remember that moment?
I was not raised with it.
Yeah.
And also, it's important to tell people that they don't need to know anything about opera to watch this movie. Like it's a work environment, and it's you might not even like opera, but but the story of Salome is super simple. It's explained to you, and just like. But I resisted opera, like a lot of people. Like I just didn't get it. But then the artistic director of the Canadian Opera Company saw Exotica and thought that the themes in that film were tied into this story. Now, I had seen a production of Salome in London. Stephen Burkhoff, the actor, had done this really amazing production in the late 80s. And I was really impressed by it. And I love Oscar Wilde. I love his writing. That play is tricky to put on stage, but he had unlocked it by making it super stylized. So then when I was introduced to the music and what Richard Strauss had done, I was going, okay, this is great. This is like like explosive, and actually it revolutionized opera, because no one had heard those types of sounds coming out of the pit before in whenever it was premiered, 1906. So I just felt that yeah, that got me super excited, and I also was aware I wasn't a student production of Wojciech, the play, and
Mm.
I played the Mad Doctor, and someone told me about Alban Berg's opera, and that was also really interesting. So I'm drawn to, like, because I'm coming from theater, like when a composer sees a play and gets excited by it and is able to respond musically. I'm about to do another one um, here in Montreal, but those are incredible experiences to have. So, but this one is very close to a lot of themes that I was dealing with at the time, in terms of voyeurism and fetishism and kind of erotic desire, what happens when you don't get to express that, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, the production was right after Exotica and before Sweet Hereafter.
Yeah. Well, I know that this was obviously a very special set for you. Was there a certain day or scene or time that stood out to you as where you're looking around going, okay, this is how I pictured it, and you'll always remember that.
In terms of like, during the shooting or like the,
Yes. Hmm.
well, I mean, there was this amazing moment where something happened, like you're so thankful as a filmmaker where, um, on the first day of shooting, which was the most insane day of my life because there was so much stuff, but I had more cameras than I normally would have on one of my sets because we had to cover so many angles of the orchestra and stuff like that. And there was this moment where there was the dancers, there was the shadow show, and I realized that I had an extra camera. And I suddenly said to Amanda, like, let's just have you wandering backstage while the dance is happening around you. And that shot is one of my favorite shots in the film. And it was not planned. And it was just it was very spontaneous. And Amanda immediately understood it.
Hmm.
And she was able to give this incredible, like, energy to this. And yeah, that to me is, I love when that happens in filmmaking, where you have everything in place, but you're suddenly inspired and you feel that like energy.
Hmm. And what is it about her that is just so special? I know you know from working with her, but she just has it for this.
She's just emotionally so available. Like whenever sometimes I look at her, I think of like young, like Betty Davis or something like that. She just has these eyes that are just so like. And I saw it like when we were doing Chloe, which is a much more formulaic sort of film, but there are these scenes that just suddenly lift because of what, the energy between her and Julianne Moore. And I just sort of see this close up of Amanda, and I see her processing feelings, like she's processing, these feelings. It's funny because someone just like resent me the clip of her in David Lynch's Twin Peaks remake. There's this long shot of her, and I go like, yeah, she's probably the only actress who could pull that moment off, right? Like it's just so her, and it's just like this unique quality she has, like her eyes and her how they transmit feeling. Like you,
Yeah.
all actors have that. No, there's something determined about the way she does it.
Hmm.
So in that moment, like it's quite crazy what she generated.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, you've been making fantastic work for years and years, and people look up to it and they think, "See, that's what I want to do." But you kind of make it look a lot easier than it is. What kind of advice do you give to those filmmakers that want to follow in your footsteps?
Have super thick skin, like
Hmm.
super thick skin. There's so much rejection involved. There's so much, people telling you you can't, and or you make something and like people, it doesn't get into the festival you want, or you don't like. It's you have to just have really thick skin and know how to deal with rejection. I'm actually lucky because my first feature wasn't like this darling. It didn't go like I understood early on that you can be rejected, and so when it began to happen, I was able to kind of like measure it. I don't know what happens if you have like this crazy hit from the beginning. I don't know how you actually then balance it, but I also started super small, like, right, so and I always tell people like the budget I had for my first feature is still like you could still shoot a film for that amount, because at that time it was mostly film stock. So it really is like you look at, like look at Sean Baker's career, like shooting Tangerine on an iPhone, and 10 years later, like look at where he is. So like that's both a blessing and a curse because you realize like it's really just about your own determination and your absolute passion to tell a story, but also finding the people around you that are going to help you do it. It's you need the team. So yeah, and in my case, because I didn't go to film school, it was like hanging around a film school, right, and kind of just trying to soak up that sense of, like it's a collaborative thing. This film, wow! If I didn't have the collaborators at the Opera House and my film crew, like all of them sort of working together, like it just couldn't have happened. Like it just, and none of them really understood exactly what the film shape was going to be like, but they just went with it, right? But
Yeah.
I'm also seeing it almost fall apart. Like because everything had to come together in this very specific time. At one point, it looked like it was just going to fall apart, and I kind of accepted that. But then I went, no, no, this has to happen. So this delusional state you have to put yourself into, which is dangerous, right? Because it may not. But that's where I guess you need to also have this thick skin and resilience.
Yeah. Well, and part of that is that sort of success mindset that you have to have, whether or not you're feeling it or not. And as creative types are notoriously hard on ourselves. So, what do you tell yourself that kind of keeps you on the right path even when things are tough?
Other people have experienced what I'm feeling right now.
Hmm.
Like it's not just me. It's like, and any feeling of inadequacy or like, or these feelings that, yeah, someone is always going to be doing something better than you. And why is it that some days that inspires you and other days it kind of like just, makes you feel I I was awakened to this idea of the superego, which is this kind of like mechanism that kind of like taunts us. And once you identify this mechanism, it's actually easier to kind of work with it because you understand it is a mechanism. It is something that kind of like you can't control it completely, but once you understand so it's things pass, feelings pass, and other people have experienced it, and it's and also being really super generous to yourself and grateful over the blessings that you get. Like our I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's absolutely true, right? Like you have to be able to experience that. And yeah, it yeah, it's just fraught with this idea that we all understand that there's something unique about ourselves, and we're trying to tell someone else like how unique that is. But some people are going to be receptive, and some people aren't, and there's all sorts of agendas, as you're seeing in this film. Like
Yeah.
she's being totally crushed by these other agendas, and yet
Mhm.
she's just pushing through. Like she has every reason, given her life and what's going on, that to kind of like just like give up, right? But she doesn't. And what's fueling that is, her attempt to resolve things in himself, right? And the sense of that going through this process, creative process, is going to do that, and it does in an unexpected way. It's not to do with the opening night and being on stage and taking a bow. It's in something way more intimate and unexpected than that.
Yeah, and I think people will get something different out of this film, depending on, what they've been through, or maybe people they know. Well, what are you hoping that people will talk about besides, oh wow, that's a great movie?
Well, just about what we're talking about, like
Yeah.
like um, how the things that actually like it's amazing to kind of to think creatively and to be in that world of art and transformation, but it's not necessarily going to go the way you think. And there are other agendas. And even look, when I look at the side story of like the props person, Leah, what happens to her, like people don't necessarily expect they don't behave the way you would want them to. So she, like this, everyone has a sense of what they need to form their sense of justice. Like, what is called sometimes restorative justice. So, like what she tries to extract from the company when this thing happens to her. This is not Amanda's character. This other person. It's like she makes maybe the wrong choices, but that we understand that this place of creativity is something that is un will provide unexpected results, but that ultimately it's potentially transformative, not necessarily in the ways we expect.
Hmm. Yeah, well said. Well, last thing then, I can't wait to see what you do next after this. I know you started mentioning about what do you have coming up that we need to know about.
I'm doing a play in Berlin that I wrote, an original play. I'm totally excited because I started in theater. I haven't done an original play since I was really young, and
Hmm.
I'm off to Berlin to do that, and that'll be in April at the Maxim Gorky Theater. And then I'm doing another opera in Montreal, which is another based on a play, Yennefer, which is a great story as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we can't wait to hear more about that. And congratulations again on this film. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for being with us, and look forward to talking to you again soon.